Facepalm America. I'm Beowulf Racklin. FacepalmAmerica.com, as always, is where you can go to get more information about the show, listen to past episodes, and connect with us on social media. And it is that time of the week again where we invite onto the program a man of wisdom, a man with great, dare I say, vast knowledge of history and with abundant political insight, John Rothmann, the host of Around the Political World with John Rothmann. John, welcome back to Facepalm America. Thank you so much for being here, and condolences on the loss of the San Francisco 49ers last night. I'm sorry that you had to bear through that, but on the positive side, the great Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce conspiracy theory to make sure that Joe Biden goes back to office continues apace.
I have two trivia questions for you.
Yes.
One relating to the game. Mm-hmm. Did you watch the ads?
I watched precious few of them. I watched maybe the last 20 minutes of the game, okay, which is unusual for me.
Bobby Kennedy Jr. did an ad
yes,
using the music from the 1960 presidential campaign of John F. Kennedy. Kennedy. It
yes.
was appalling.
Yeah.
Just terrible. And number two, today is February the 12th. Can you tell me the historical significance of this date?
I cannot tell you the significance, but I know it must have something to do with political presidential history. Tell us, O Sage of the East.
Today is Abraham Lincoln's birthday.
Oh.
And I just wanted to point out, why do I remember? Because we used to get this day off from school every February 12th.
That's right, and now they condense it into President's Day, which means, okay, great. I mean, I'm glad everything is coordinated, but, an extra day off of school, especially...
You realize that next Monday is President's Day.
Indeed.
So we will be together, and I don't know what president we're going to celebrate. I used to laughingly say it must be a celebration of Warren Harding. I don't know. Well, more about that next week.
Maybe Silent Cal or something like that. We need to review, I think, some of the underrated and under-discussed presidents at that time.
You realize if we did Silent Cal, you and I would be at a big loss because we'd have a program with no sound at all.
That's probably true. He was an interesting sort of guy. He had interesting pets. He wasn't actually that silent when it comes right down to it. But it would be an interesting day to go back in history and talk about some of the great presidents in addition to our regular political discussion. Why
don't we throw that in for next week?
I think that's an excellent idea. And in the meantime, let's talk about this because there's so many things going on. My goodness. Okay. We knew that he was inclined in this direction already, but Donald Trump over the weekend made a statement basically saying that if he were president and he were in charge of our relationship with NATO and NATO members didn't pay their dues, he would encourage Russia to attack them. My God, John, what bodes this?
General David Petraeus, interviewed this morning on CNN, called it a treasonous comment.
Indeed.
Our allies in Europe are absolutely horrified. Now, my dear friends, I've made the case against Donald Trump repeatedly on so many different levels. But if ever there were a reason to disqualify Donald Trump from ever getting near the Oval Office again, this is it.
Yeah, it's just astonishing. I mean, he continues, and he did this in the middle of his term, like making common cause with Americans' enemies. It's just atrocious. It's astounding. It defies international norms. It breaks our alliance. And how can someone like that be trusted to ever take the reins again?
And where's the Republican Party?
No,
my
exactly.
Perpetual question. The Republican Party ought to be standing up and saying to Donald Trump, that's it. Goodbye. We don't want you as our nominee. And believe me, I've told you the story before, but I'm going to repeat it one more time. The reason Eisenhower got into the race for president in 1952 is because of a dinner he had with Robert Taft in 1951. Taft said he would pull out of NATO. Eisenhower said, well, if you believe that, I'm going to run against you and I'm going to beat you. And thank God that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it's just another warning bell. And another one that we have, unfortunately, on the other side is the situation with President Biden. Now, I understand that the report that the special counsel dealing with the classified documents on President Biden's side was, at least from my perspective, pretty biased. And you cannot compare the two situations between Biden and Trump. There is clearly no comparison. They did not charge him. Frankly, I don't think it really should have even been brought up to a special counsel level. However, he did note the fact that the president has lapses in memory, and this is something that we can see play out in real time before us. And while
you mean like mixing up Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi? Oh wait, wrong president.
No, and I understand. It is something that Donald Trump does as well. And frankly, Donald Trump has done far worse things in that, he rambles all over the place. He doesn't know who he's talking to. Even if he did know who he was talking to, he wouldn't have the common decency to maintain any sort of consistency. He has no concern about that. Nevertheless, I think there is a concern here that we need to address with President Biden. And I think we have, and I do not think that the press conference that he held to address it after this was released by the special counsel Tur really bolstered confidence, because again,
was it the president of Mexico or the president of Iran?
It was the president.
It was the president of Egypt. I don't want to forget what I'm talking about. I'm just using this as an example. Yeah. This is the kind of thing that happens. And of course, Joe Biden mixing up the president of Mexico and the president of Egypt was certainly not a good thing to have happen. But look, let's be honest. Unless Joe Biden withdraws as a candidate for the presidency, the odds are he will be the Democratic nominee for president of the United States. Now, will the Democratic Party, will his family intervene if there's a need to intervene? We heard Ro Khanna, a member of Congress who met with President Biden recently, who said he was just fine. And we hear his staff saying the same thing. But maybe perception becomes the reality. And it's going to be a very interesting situation. By the way, I think Biden made a terrible error in not agreeing to the post-Super Bowl interview. I think it would have been a great opportunity for him to do it. Second year, he hasn't done it. Last year, he didn't do it because it was on Fox. He had no excuse this year, and it would have demonstrated his credibility in terms of his ability to articulate. But you know what? Water under the bridge, that's where we stand now, and that's all we can do.
Yeah, and I really think, I would encourage, not that they listen to this or a lot of other folks, not only his family, but the DNC should seriously consider re-examining whether this is a good idea.
But it's not the DNC, you see. That's the point. The national committees have no power at all.
Well, I don't know if that's true, John. I mean, they have some influence on the matter.
I'm not so sure that's true anymore. And as a student of American politics, once upon a time, if a national committee made a statement, but you want to know how ineffective the national committees are? So let me point out to you that Trump is about to fire Romney McDaniel.
Well, that's true. Yeah, on the Republican side, I completely agree with you. On the Democratic
and the Democrats,
it's a little different.
Do you even know who the national chairman of the Democratic Party is?
God, is
I
it
rest
Schultz?
My case.
Is it Debbie Wasserman Schultz? Is she still there?
Oh my God, you're dating yourself. It's like saying that Richard Nixon is still president. The point that I'm making to you, the only time the national committees will matter is if there's a vacancy. If something happens to Biden, something happens to Trump after the convention, because then the national committees are the ones who select the new nominees. And the only example we really have of that is when Tom Eagleton resigned from the Democratic ticket in 1972, and the national committee was summoned to make the choice. But George McGovern is the one who submitted the name to the national committee, and as the nominee, he chose his vice president, who, I would remind you, was the last pro-life Democrat to be nominated for national office, Sargent Shriver.
Yeah, and I think you're underrating their power. I hear they are less powerful than they used to be, but I think you and I realize, though we may disagree on strategy here, how critically important it is to defeat Donald Trump and how sharp it is important for the candidate to be and how focused it is important for his campaign.
Well, we know the Democrats, if something happens to Joe Biden, they're going to go with Kamala Harris. How do we know that? We know that Gavin Newsom will not run against Kamala Harris. He's made that very clear. By the way, they're both from the same state, which creates a whole other issue. And the other potential Democratic nominees. Nobody who hasn't run in a primary can be the nominee. We don't have open conventions anymore. Delegates are going to be pledged, and Joe Biden's got an iron lock. What will be interesting to see on the Republican side is what happens with Nikki Haley in South Carolina. Can you believe that Donald Trump attacked her husband, who was on active duty, and ridiculed him?
It's another of a disgusting parade of comments that he has made.
Now, South Carolina is a heavily military state. That is to say, a lot of retired military people live in South Carolina. Are they going to vote for Donald Trump? I find it unbelievable.
I find it unbelievable too, but at the same time, given like what we have seen over the past several years, I suspect they will probably go ahead and do it because really they are entranced to a degree which defies logic. I mean, you're right. Like by every traditional measure, they should not do that because clearly Donald Trump flies in the face of all convention, including their convention, including their tradition. Nevertheless, he has like ensnared them somehow mentally, and that's it's something that we can't ignore. And it boggles my mind, but it is true nevertheless.
You know what I couldn't quite grasp is I listened to an interview on CNN with Elise Stefanik,
yes,
who said if she had been vice president, and she wants to be vice president, but if she had been Mike Pence, she would have thrown out the whole thing and put it all back to the states because there was clearly something wrong with the election. Can you imagine? She is the number 3 Republican in the House of Representatives.
Yeah,
and Carrie Lake, who is from Arizona, certainly no person I would vote for. And so you've got a situation now that is absolutely incredible.
Yes. And she is very likely to be the vice presidential nominee. I mean, she's certainly making these statements specifically because she hopes she will become that. And so the danger on the other side is not lessening. And I would welcome an announcement by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, passing the torch so that we can make sure to preserve our democracy. I just do not think that it is in the best interests of certainly the country, definitely the Democratic Party, and for all Americans who value democracy for Joe Biden to continue down this path. I honor him for his service, but I want to make sure that we preserve our democracy. That is very, very important to all of us.
I agree. All right, what's next on your agenda?
So, Republicans in Congress, what the heck are they doing? They have been blocking aid to Ukraine, to Israel, on so many different issues because of this ridiculous border issue that they have contrived. Democrats handed them everything, and yet they have still turned it down, and yet there seem to be hopeful rumblings within the Republican House, specifically Intelligence Chair Mike Turner, who says he's confident that Mike Johnson will allow a vote on the Senate aid package. Your thoughts, John?
Look, the Senate is acting. The House is not. I don't know what Speaker Johnson will do. It's shameful that he's even Speaker of the House of Representatives. This is a man who is an election denier, a Trump supporter. So bottom line, Beowulf, is this. We have to give the aid to Ukraine. We have to give the aid to Israel. And if we don't, we are abdicating our responsibility in the world. The reason we opened with a NATO business is because this is the ultimate test for the Republicans. Are they a party of isolation? Are they a party that cares about what goes on in the world? I couldn't tell you. And that's what they have to clarify. All I can tell you is the Republicans' dysfunctionality. Look at Mitch McConnell, the longest serving leader in the history of the Senate, a man who supported the aid to Ukraine and was stymied by his own members. So the Republican Party has a functionality problem in terms of its congressional leadership and congressional delegation. So that's what makes this so complex, so